There are moments in life when a single glance, a careless comment, or a cold silence can make us question our worth. Most people let those moments pass like dust on a windy road, but a few pause, look deeper, and ask themselves why they allowed someone else to hold the pen that writes their value. The ancients wrestled with this long before the modern world existed. In distant villages, our grandparents told stories of wanderers who forgot their name because too many voices defined them. And in those same stories, the heroes regained their strength the moment they stopped waiting for others to validate their presence. This, in many ways, is where Stoicism enters the stage. Stoicism, born in the markets of Athens and refined in the courts of emperors, has always whispered a simple but powerful idea. Your value does not come from the world's applause. It comes from the strength you carry within. Seneca once wrote, "No person is more unhappy than one who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." The Stoics weren't interested in empty pride or loud confidence. They were interested in inner dignity, an unshakable sense of self that could survive insults, betrayal, or even the collapse of entire empires. Their philosophy taught people to walk through life like the old storytellers' heroes, not arrogant but aware, not loud but impossible to ignore. And that brings us to the real tension of this discussion. If every human carries a quiet, natural worth, why do so many of us hand it over so easily? Why do we let the wrong people decide how we should feel about ourselves? Before we can explore any solutions, we first need to ask the question the Stoics asked centuries ago: what makes a person forget their own value in the first place? If this message struck a chord with you, if even one sentence made you pause and look at your own worth a little differently, then don't leave quietly. Subscribe, hit the like button, and drop a comment telling me which part spoke to you the most. Your engagement isn't just support for the channel. It's a way of saying, my voice matters, my story matters, and trust me, I'm here to read every word you share. Number 1. You are nothing. You are everything. There's a strange moment in every person's life when someone, through a cold stare, a dismissive tone, or a quiet betrayal, tries to shrink them down to the size of a shadow. It happens in families, in relationships, in the workplace, even in friendships that once felt safe. People don't always attack with words. Sometimes they attack with absence. And then, before we realize it, doubt starts whispering. But the Stoics saw this centuries ago. They believed the world can distort your reflection, but only you can forget who's standing in the mirror. That's why Epictetus warned, no one can diminish you unless you first hand them the power. Some old folk tales say that a person's worth is like fire in the mountains. It can be covered, but it cannot be erased. One story speaks of a traveler mistaken for a beggar. Villagers pushed him aside for days, until they discovered he was the very scholar they were waiting to learn from. The Stoics loved stories like this because they taught something subtle. People may not see your value, but that blindness belongs to them, not you. Stoicism teaches that every human carries an internal spark, a quiet nobility, a dignity that's not granted by applause or recognition. Even Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, not the world's judgment." But here's the paradox the Stoics embraced. You are nothing, yet you are everything. You are nothing, in the sense that the universe does not revolve around you. Your ego, your pride, your desire for validation. This humility keeps you grounded and prevents you from becoming fragile. But at the same time, you are everything, because your inner life, your character, your choices, your strength is the only world that truly belongs to you. When someone treats you as if you're worthless, they are reacting to a version of you that exists inside their limited vision. Stoicism invites you to see the bigger truth. Your worth is measured from the inside out, not from the outside in. The ancients never said, ignore people or be stone cold. They said something more nuanced. Know where your value really comes from. A Stoic doesn't beg for respect, but they also don't isolate themselves. Instead, they carry themselves with a quiet confidence, the kind you see in people who've walked through storms and learned something from each one. There's a Greek village story about a fisherman who returned from a terrible storm, soaked and bruised. Villagers mocked him for failing because his nets were empty. He simply smiled and said, "The sea takes fish, but it did not take me." That's the Stoic spirit, dignity without noise. So now we reach the real question, the one that matters more than any philosophy or old tale. Why do we allow people to treat us as if we are small, when everything in our nature points to something far greater? Before we talk about how to reclaim that inner worth, we must ask, at what moment did we start believing others were better judges of our value than we are ourselves? Number 2. Identify and correct negative thoughts in time. There comes a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes sharp, when someone's tone, someone's lack of respect, or someone's cold behavior starts echoing inside your mind long after they've walked away. The real danger isn't their behavior. It's the way your mind begins replaying it, twisting it, turning it into a narrative about your worth. The Stoics understood this mental trap better than anyone. They believed that the world harms us less with its actions and more with the stories we tell ourselves afterward. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not the whispers it collects from others." In many old villages, elders used to say, "The first insult comes from outside. The second one, you add yourself." They told tales of shepherds who'd hear one rude comment at the marketplace, carry it home, repeat it silently for days, and eventually believe it as truth. That is the danger of unchecked thoughts. They quietly shape who you think you are. Stoic philosophy teaches that the mind can turn shadows into mountains if we're not paying attention. Epictetus warned that it's often not events, but the judgments that follow, that cut deepest. So the question becomes, how early do we catch the lie before it settles in? Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion or pretending you're unshakable. It's about recognizing the moment a thought turns toxic right at the beginning when it's still small enough to correct. This is where the Stoic insight of mental audition comes in, the practice of examining each thought as if it's applying for a role in your life. If a thought whispers, "Maybe I don't matter," you don't accept it blindly. You pause, question it, and decide whether this idea deserves space in your mind. The Stoics believed the mind is a stage, and not every thought deserves to be part of the play. A story from Persian folklore tells of a potter who created a bowl so thin and fragile that a single rude comment shattered it, not physically, but mentally. He stopped making art because he believed his worth depended on the approval of one harsh customer. Years later, he discovered that same customer criticized everyone because that's who the customer was, not who the potter was. This story carries a Stoic truth. Unexamined thoughts make us prisoners of other people's moods. When you learn to identify and correct negative thoughts early, you take back control of the story being written inside you. And now comes the important question, the one every person must face if they want to protect their worth. If a single negative thought can grow into a belief, what happens when you never question any of them at all? Before we talk about the methods and solutions, we first need to understand how many of our wounds come from the world and how many are quietly created inside our own minds. Number 3. Be decisive in word and deed. Stoic courage. There are moments in life when someone speaks to you as if your presence is optional, your voice is noise, or your existence is something they can pause and unpause at will. Those moments sting not because of what they say, but because of the hesitation they awaken inside you. That pause, that uncertainty, that should I speak up or stay quiet, is often where your worth begins to slip. The Stoics believed that hesitation in moments of disrespect slowly erodes dignity. Seneca once wrote, A person who cannot stand firm in small matters collapses in greater ones. Stoic courage was never about shouting, it was about standing. In old mountain villages, elders used to say, "A wolf never fears being alone, but a sheep always waits for approval." They told stories of travelers who stayed silent in the face of disrespect, hoping kindness would magically appear. It never did. Silence, when driven by fear, becomes an invitation for others to shrink you. Stoic courage teaches something different. Your dignity grows the moment you decide clearly, calmly, and without apology what you will accept and what you will not. Decisiveness is not aggression. It is self-respect in motion. Stoicism treats decisiveness as a form of moral clarity. When you speak honestly and act consistently, you create an inner alignment, a harmony between who you are and how you move in the world. Marcus Aurelius called it straightness without effort, the ability to stand tall without forcing anything. In psychological terms, this decisiveness interrupts self-doubt before it becomes a story about your value. Because every time you hesitate to draw a boundary, you silently tell your mind, "My comfort doesn't matter." And the mind believes what you repeatedly allow. There's a Persian folktale about a craftsman who built magnificent doors for kings, but whenever someone disrespected him, he only smiled and lowered his eyes. Eventually, people treated him like he didn't matter. One day, a child asked why he never defended himself. The craftsman replied, "A door never chooses who walks through it." The child laughed and said, "Then you are not a door, you are a man." That simple sentence awakened him. The next time someone spoke down to him, he answered with calm clarity, and surprisingly, the disrespect stopped. Sometimes all the world needs is for you to declare, once and for all, who you are. And this leads us to the central question, the one the Stoics believed reveals a person's true character. If your words and actions never express your worth, how can you expect anyone else to see it? Before we explore how to build that Stoic decisiveness, we must ask ourselves, where did we learn to hesitate when our dignity was on the line? Number 4. True strength is knowing who you are and reminding yourself of it. There are moments when someone's words hit you like a cold wind, sharp, sudden, and meant to make you shrink. Those moments are dangerous, not because of the insult, but because of the doubt that slips into your mind afterward. The Stoics believed the real battle doesn't happen in the world. It happens inside, in the quiet space where you decide whether to accept another person's definition of you. Epictetus warned, "If you want to be noble, first believe you are noble." True strength begins there, in remembering who you are before the world tells you otherwise. In a small village by the sea, elders used to tell the story of a fisherman whose net was always half empty. People mocked him, saying he lacked skill. Over time, he began to believe them. He would cast his net with hesitation, already expecting failure. Then one night, an old woman told him, "Your net catches only what your mind allows." The next morning, he cast his net with resolve, and the same hands, the same net, in the same waters brought home a full catch. The villagers claimed it was luck. But he knew the truth. The moment he remembered his worth, the world responded differently. Stoic strength is not about force or bravado. It is about the inner anchor that keeps you steady when other people try to define you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind. Stop letting it be stolen." In psychology, we call this narrative ownership, the power to decide which internal story becomes the foundation of your identity. When you lose that story, when you forget who you are, other people rush to write it for you. And trust me, their version is always smaller than the truth. Sometimes the world reduces you through small, almost invisible cuts, a sarcastic comment, a dismissive gesture, a moment of being ignored. These moments accumulate. They drain you not because they are loud, but because they are subtle. In another old tale, a shepherd carried a stone in his pocket. Every time someone dismissed him, he added another. Eventually, he could barely walk. Only when he emptied his pockets did he realize the stones were never the problem. It was the belief that he had to carry them at all. Strength isn't about holding everything. It's about choosing what's worth holding. So here is the heart of Stoic dignity. Never let the world's noise make you forget your own voice. And if you ever feel that doubt creeping in, remind yourself quietly or loudly, it doesn't matter of the person you truly are. The Stoics never asked us to be perfect. They simply asked us to stand in our own truth long enough for the dust to settle. Because once you know your worth and remind yourself of it, no one, not a stranger, not a critic, not even your own old fears can convince you that you are less than whole. If you stayed with me until the final line, consider this your quiet moment of strength. The very fact that you're still here tells me something important. You care about your inner worth, your inner voice, and the way you walk through this world. That already separates you from those who let life define them instead of defining themselves. So take a breath, straighten your shoulders, and carry this with you. The Stoics never expected perfection, only presence. And tonight, in reading this to the end, you have shown exactly that. Keep going, keep growing, and never again shrink to fit the small stories others try to write for you.